Hello, class. In this series of videos, we're going to go over how to apply filters onto your images. Now, these filters are different. They're not the same as the filters that you see on your social media, say in Instagram, Snapchat, what have you. These are a different type of photo filters that you can use within Photoshop to change the style. They do change the pixels, but again, they're not the same as the filters found within your social media. I just want to make that clear. So one of the things that I'm going to do, I have this our Photoshop image of the week. I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this image because I'm going to refer back to this one. There are different type of filters that we could use. I first want to go over in the file menu right here. Notice that there is a filter menu. And we're going to go over the filter gallery, liquify, but before we do that, that's going to be coming in a future next two videos. I want to go over some of the filters that are available here. I want to point out that we'll just start off with blur. Any filter that does not have the little ellipses, the three dots, is just something that you apply it and that's it. You can't, no settings whatsoever. So for example, instead, I want to use one of these blurs and notice how each one of them have the ellipses. I'm going to go ahead and say, for example, let me go ahead and use maybe this motion blur right here. It's going to open up this little preview. I could change the distance. I could also change the angle, and you see what's happening right here within my image. And once I select OK, it applies it, and I'm going to go ahead and do so right now. And this has applied this filter on this image. Now the thing to consider is that since this filter has been applied, it's changing your pixels. So that's why I created a copy. I'm just going to go ahead and on this one just say this was a motion blur. For your assignment, now I want you to do something more than just a motion blur, but I want to show you how to apply filters. I'm going to go ahead and create a new copy of this one. So now we have an additional copy. Let's go back into filter. Uh, New to Photoshop, this one has what's called a blur gallery. So if we open up this one, doesn't matter which one you open up, because once you open it up, you actually have access to all of them. Each one of these does a different effect. This is the field blur, and this one you are basically able to change the amount of that blur right here by changing this little circle. And if you I don't know if you're able to click multiple. Yeah, you are. So you're able to blur different areas. So say, for example, right here, I want to blur this area out. I could click and drag this one. And in fact, what if I don't want any blur? So I want this to be intact. I want to blur this corner up here and maybe this corner as well. We could always move these around. Say, what if I don't want her to be blurred out, but I want these guys right here to be blurred. So I could do something like that. What if I blur these right here? Add another one right here. No blur. No blur. There we go. And if you like something like this, you could always, up on top, you have to either apply it, OK, or cancel it. Before I get out of here, I'm going to uncheck this field blur because you could also apply a radius blur, which works similar. It has different controls. I could always control how much blur happens outside of this radius. I could change the radius by changing the shape either to more square or round. I could click on these to bring them in closer. I could change how much it's going to go from the inside to the outside, how much blur, and I should be able to apply multiple ones as well, just like this. I'm going to go ahead and scale this one in. So say I want to not have a radial blur on her. Let's go back to this one. And what if on the outside, you can see how I'm able to change everything on the outside right there. So this is another method that you're able to uh, apply blurs. I'm going to uncheck this one. There's also a tilt shift. It won't work that well on an image like this because it's not necessarily designed for tilt shift. but I could always just move this. I only want to blur out a certain area. The path one is interesting. If I had a path that I could use with this with, that's the direction, but you're also able to change the path. And if I click on this one right here, you can see how you could really change the angle, how that blur is happening. I'm going to go ahead and undo this one, or turn it off, I should say. Then lastly, you have a spin. So around the areas, I could now focus on just blurring within these areas. You can see how this is now just blurring within this area, as opposed to the iris where it was not blurring on the inside. So I could always put these somewhere else. Or I'm going to bring back my field blur. I have something like this and say, okay, I want this one. I'm going to go ahead and tell it okay. And this blur has now been applied to this layer. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and stop this video so that this one's only going to be focusing on these types of filters. Filters that could be found in here. And my suggestion is to go through these and experiment. We're not going to go through all these filters one by one. I would definitely want you to experiment. So in the next video, we'll go over through the filter gallery and then lastly, the liquify. So I'll see you in those videos.